Good day, dear friends. This is Ruslan Belov, and today we're once again going through the daily briefing from the Ukrainian front. A lot has happened today, quite a bit of it consequential, so let's get straight into it without wasting time. The Russian army continues its offensive, and today the AFU front line gave way in three separate areas at once. The first is the northeast of Kharkiv region, near Bily Kolodiaz. The AFU grouping there is effectively on the verge of encirclement and could find itself in a pocket at any moment. Something we'll break down in detail shortly. The second area is Zaporizhzhia region, near Orikhiv, one of the key hinge points on the entire front, where the situation could shift at a genuinely strategic level. More on that below. And the third problem area for the AFU is the Dobropillia sector, where the fate of the town appears likely to be decided within days, though the Ukrainian side has so far stayed quiet about it, apparently not yet grasping the scale of what's unfolding. Russian forces are breaking through the defense in two separate spots there. Meanwhile, Zelenskyy spoke this evening and stated he has no intention of surrendering any part of Donbass. On the subject of Ukrainian ballistic missiles, he said Western partners aren't thrilled about Ukraine developing its own ballistic capability. Worth noting, European countries themselves have essentially no ground-based ballistic missiles of their own. France has intercontinental range weapons, but nothing resembling a short-range system like an Iskander or an American ATAC-EMS exists anywhere else in Europe. Zelenskyy says the West will envy Ukraine's new capabilities, but he immediately added a caveat. A significant share of the components in these missiles are Western-made, and the West could restrict access to them at any time it chooses. The question of Ukraine's dependence on Western support deserves its own separate discussion, honestly. The situation increasingly resembles a private military contractor fighting on someone else's money, with someone else's technology, and someone else's weapons. And even the weapons produced domestically inside Ukraine are financed largely by Western money. In effect, isn't this arrangement functionally a PMC fighting in someone else's interest? I genuinely can't recall a precedent in world history of a country so thoroughly dependent on outside backers, fighting almost entirely at another's expense for this long. Ukrainians themselves seem to reconcile this logic without much difficulty, but from the outside it raises real questions. There's something almost colonial about the structure of it, just repackaged in a modern form. Still, this is ultimately an internal matter for Ukrainians to work through themselves. But it's a perspective shared by a fair number of outside observers, not just me. Now to Zaporizhzhia region, genuinely interesting footage came out of there today, worth spending some time on. The map now shows numerous new strike markers on Ukrainian units deep behind AFU lines. This kind of density hasn't been seen in quite a while, not just on the Zaporizhzhia axis, but essentially across the whole front. Russian drones are pushing deep into Ukrainian rear areas. It appears the forward line has been penetrated in multiple places, with strikes now reaching 10 to 20 kilometers in depth on a regular basis, and some individual strikes going as far as 150-200 kilometers behind the line. These mid-range strikes are inflicting real measurable damage, not just to military assets, but to civilian infrastructure and business operations as well, which matters for the broader war economy. That reminds me of something worth mentioning. During his recent visit to the US, Zelenskyy reportedly asked Trump to lean on Musk to allow Starlink to be used in support of strikes deep into Russian territory, Belgorod, Kursk region, and similar areas. Musk, unsurprisingly, won't grant that request, since he understands clearly that enabling this would amount to direct escalation of the war, and he's been consistent on that point. Former Defense Minister Umerov, then still going by Fedorov, had earlier made a similar request to Musk directly, and Zelenskyy personally asked for a meeting on the matter. Musk declined and said instead that it was time to bring the war to an end. Back to Zaporizhzhia region, I have information here you won't find reported anywhere else at this point. Within a day or two, Tokmachka will come under full Russian control, and the long saga around this particular settlement is finally nearing its end. It took Russian forces a long time to even approach it, and the way it ultimately played out differs somewhat from what was initially expected. But either way, its fate at this point is sealed. On Orikhiv itself, which we covered in the morning update, there's no new confirmed information yet. Expect more clarity on both Orikhiv and Tokmachka within the next day or two as more footage comes in. What about the border areas? Sumy region, no significant changes to report today. Kharkiv region, however, is turning into a real disaster for the AFU. As a reminder of the broader context, over recent months, Russian forces advanced from the direction of Vovchansk and expanded a small cross-border foothold considerably, including capturing the sizable settlement of Bily Kolodyaz along the way. As a result, a significant AFU grouping is now pinned into a small pocket of territory in the northernmost part of the region, and Russian forces are actively working to close the pincers and cut this grouping off from the rest of the AFU entirely. The composition of this grouping is telling. Since the AFU's main reserves are committed to holding Donbass and Zaporizhzhia, the units fighting here are largely made up of former Ukrainian convicts and Colombian mercenaries based near the settlement of Prikolotne. Mobilized personnel are almost entirely absent from this sector. Roughly 90% are volunteers who signed up of their own accord. Russian forces, accordingly, show them little mercy in this fight. The Colombian mercenaries in particular are taking heavy losses, with a large volume of footage of casualties circulating online. I won't be showing that material here, but it can be found through other sourcing if you go looking for it. Russian groupings continue tightening the pincers in this sector, advancing toward each other from two directions, and over the past day or two have taken two more settlements in the process, the villages of Ivanivka and Anishkine. Now to Dobropillia, an important one. I mentioned earlier that although the map already showed Russian forces entering the town, in reality it had only amounted to reconnaissance sabotage group probing attempts, and the first such attempt failed outright. Now, however, confirmed data indicates that the settlement of Novyi Donbass has been fully taken by Russian forces, and beyond that, units have already advanced from there directly into Dobropillia itself and established a foothold inside the town. The grey zone now extends to roughly the middle of the settlement. So the fate of this town, too, is likely to be decided in the near term. It's an important location that would give Ukrainian forces a strong logistics hub, with routes running in several directions, since a large number of roads converge here. Its capture would also open a path north for Russian forces, toward the border of Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Moving to the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk sector, interesting material came out of there too today. In Kramatorsk, a strike hit the bridge connecting the city across the river to Kazeni Torets. Photos show the bridge damaged, but not fully destroyed, still standing. I suspect all the bridges in this area will eventually be knocked out one by one. The city sits mostly on the eastern bank of the river, so supply runs through these crossings, and they're a clear priority target for Russian forces going forward. Out of Sloviansk itself, footage showed a different bridge entirely. Not the one we saw earlier, with half its span destroyed, but one that's now been completely destroyed in full. There's little logic in launching direct assaults on the cities themselves while stable supply lines remain intact. The first rule of a successful offensive in this war is cutting the opponent's logistics first, which multiplies the odds of success considerably. That's precisely the approach Russian forces appear to be following here. Around Mykolaiv, there's heavy FPV drone activity underway. Russian operators have effectively taken control of the airspace over the settlement, and infantry are already operating inside the town itself. As noted before, it has substantial multi-story housing offering plenty of cover for defenders. But clearing it out is likely to take somewhere around a month to 6 weeks regardless, after which Russian forces would find themselves right at the approaches to Sloviansk itself. Strikes are also hitting the neighboring settlement of Ryhorodok, through which supplies to Lyman pass. It has to be acknowledged honestly that the Russian push toward Lyman itself has essentially stalled, and command attention appears to have shifted elsewhere as progress there has ground to a halt. In general, the logic on both sides here is the same. Reserves and reinforcements go wherever an advance is actually gaining ground in order to build on that success as much as possible. And that applies equally to the Ukrainian side. From the Dnipropetrovsk direction, new footage has come in showing gains in favor of the AFU this time. I'll note a recurring pattern that shows up in the comments every time. The moment I report AFU advances, I get labeled a pro-Ukrainian blogger. The moment I report Russian advances, I get labeled pro-Russian. Worth repeating once again for anyone new here. All information comes from open sources, and which side happens to be advancing makes no difference to how it's reported. The entire point of the map is to stay objective, regardless of which side benefits. 2 video materials came in today, from 2 separate points along this line. Sources report, positional fighting continues near Velika Novosilka. AFU positions in Zirka and around Yalta came under fire from Russian forces, while the AFU recovered part of previously lost positions along the Mokry Yali riverbed and expanded its zone of control there by roughly 2 kilometers. The area marked in yellow on the map passed under AFU control over the past 24 hours based on this footage. There are also reports of AFU counterattack attempts toward the settlements of Yalta and Zaporizhzhia, local place names in this specific area, distinct from the broader region and city of the same names. As for Andriivka, Klevtsove, and Zelenskyy High, no confirmed footage has come from the AFU side, yet showing full control of either location. The most recent footage out of this area actually came from the Russian side, showing a Russian military presence in Andriivka, Klevtsove, and earlier footage showed a presence near Zelenskyy High as well. Many people in the comments noted that supply to this pocket likely runs through the southern part, via the settlement of Oleksandrograd. Worth recalling that heavy fighting persisted for a long stretch to the north and northwest of Oleksandrograd, an area where Russian forces steadily expanded their zone of control and improved positions along the line of contact. The AFU attempted counterattacks there on more than one occasion, but without success. So Oleksandrograd remains firmly under confident Russian control, and supply to Andriivka, Klevtsove, and Zelenskyy High could plausibly be running from there. Nothing will be stated as confirmed just yet. As soon as new footage emerges, the map will be updated accordingly and covered in full detail. And to close out today's briefing, an important update that just came in as we were finishing up. Up to 50,000 North Korean troops could be sent to Russia to take part in the war against Ukraine, according to a statement from Zelenskyy. He stated that the decision to send them has already been made on the North Korean and Russian side. Earlier reports referred only to hundreds, then thousands of North Korean troops. The figure now being cited has grown to a range of 30,000 to 50,000. According to Zelenskyy, North Korea is treating this deployment as an opportunity to study modern warfare firsthand, experience it could later apply in potential future crises or conflicts in the Asia-Pacific region. North Korea will keep building up modern combat experience, will receive licenses from Russia, and will get every kind of military tool from them. We understand this clearly, he said. He also noted that North Korean missiles have previously been found on Ukrainian territory and that reports emerged in recent days of North Korean launch systems being deployed in Voronezh region. That's everything for today, friends. Thanks for watching. If you found this briefing useful, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next update. Take care of yourselves.